Welcome to Moonshot Radio with your host, Dr. Nivea Torres.
Greetings and welcome to Moonshot Radio, where every moment is an opportunity to learn. I'm your host, Nivea Torres, Executive Director of the Kindergarten Readiness Collaborative, also known as KRC. Our vision is that all children in Indian River County will be ready for kindergarten. We proudly partner with the Moonshot Movement, who is transforming the next generation in Indian River County by having 90% of all students reading on grade level by the third grade. With me today in the studio is Jeff Shear. Jeff is the CEO of Tykes and Teens. Jeff, welcome.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Very excited to have you here today. I was really looking forward to this conversation, Jeff.
Yes.
Jeff, tell us a little bit about how Tykes and Teens came to be and what its core mission is.
Well, we have been providing services for almost 23 years. It'll be 23 years in April, and which is quite a while ago, and I am the co-founder of the organization, and it was really driven out of the need to have affordable, high-quality mental health services in our community. So for 19 of those 23 years, we were in Martin County. And so our goal was really to address all high-level needs of mental health. So we have like an alternative out-of-school suspension program. We have specialty programs for therapists who specialize in domestic violence and sexual abuse, treating kids who've experienced that. We have a YES program, Youth Enrichment Services, which focus on kids with high-risk needs, so involved in the delinquency system, substance abuse issues, frequent hospitalizations. Of course, it requires a little more wraparound for those kids. We have a prevention programming, which does programming in the schools as well as in the community. And finally, what it was that brought us into the 4-county area was our infant mental health program. So these are therapists who specialize in working with children birth to 5. The primary focus of that is working on making sure that children have a healthy attachment. Now, our therapists really, their expertise is working on how trauma impacts that attachment. So that's either the parent's trauma from their history, how that may impact the ability for them to attach to their child, or if the child's involved in a high level of chaos in the home, and for instance, if the dependency system is involved and it's created the child to have behaviors that may be difficult to manage, we can get involved and work on that trauma and how that plays a role. And often what we find is it's a dual trauma. It's both the child's trauma as well as the parent's trauma, and how that interferes in the functioning of those children.
That certainly sounds very comprehensive, that you look not only at the child, but at the parents, so you're looking at the entire family,
Yes.
Jeff.
We're very family system oriented, yes.
So what counties, what communities does Tykes and Teens serve?
Well, so when we expanded our infant, when we developed the infant mental health program, we expanded into St. Lucie, Indian River, and Okeechobee County. What we have now decided, so that was a little over 3 years ago that we did that, we have now decided to take all of our services to kind of duplicate that in all 4 counties. So, for instance, here in Indian River, we just launched our alternative out-of-school suspension program. That started in October, funding from Johns Island, CSAC, and United Way. And that actually is kind of kicked off well. And, you know, there's a lot of things that's happened in the world in the last year, Stoneman Douglas in particular. You know, that was a young man who had been expelled from school. And so there's a lot of movement now to trying to, how do we engage all of our kids to stay in school? And I won't go too much into that, but I know that our program is very effective. We've been doing it down in Martin County for 19 years. The average recidivism rate for a student who gets suspended, about 60% of those kids will get suspended a second time. For kids who attend our program, it's only 30%. So we are able to cut that recidivism rate by half. So it's pretty remarkable.
You're seeing the impact. You're seeing the impact of the work that you're doing, Jeff.
Yes.
That's very powerful. How do families access these programs that you mentioned?
So here in Indian River, we have our infant mental health program. We also provide, we oversee the Healthy Families program here in Indian River and the out-of-school suspension. So out-of-school suspension, right, you have to be suspended from school. You'll get a referral from the district at the time of their suspension. Our infant mental health program, we're targeting 2 different populations. So some of our referrals come from the Department of Children and Families. So those are children that are involved in the dependency system. So some kind of abuse has occurred. So we're working on reunifying those families or eliminating the barrier that created the involvement of the department. The other project, one that I probably am most excited about, last year we got funding through Impact 100 for this project, is we actually support child care centers recognizing how trauma interferes in children's behavior and what we can do as a system, so in this particular case, the child care center, to mediate the response of those children in regards to trauma. So this is really why this is so important with this particular age group is that when children have experienced high level of stress, what we call toxic stress, the way the brain responds is that they operate from the fight-flight response. So that's the limbic system part of the brain. So they're constantly scanning the environment, are always prepared. Those that experience toxic stress are always prepared to be in a fight-flight mode. So it's awfully hard to learn, right? If I'm paying attention to the door, or if my teacher yells, even though it may be completely benign, I think the next thing that's going to come is a hand. And so we are trying to teach systems, the child care centers themselves, that we typically blame kids, right? If they are disruptive, we blame them, we punish them, we utilize power to be able to control those kids to do the right thing, as opposed to recognizing it's an automatic response. They're in a fight-flight mode. Or that they, because one of the other things that we learn is that the way we learn to regulate ourselves is we have communication from our prefrontal cortex, the front part of our brain, our executive center of our brain, that says to our back part of our brain, our limbic system, say, hey, everything is okay. Well, if I'm constantly in an environment where there's substance abuse, right, there's unpredictability, if there's domestic violence in my home, well, there's no need for my brain to say everything is okay because I never know when it's going to be. So the great thing about child care centers is that we can help those children learn the difference between when they're in an environment where it's high stress and an environment that it's not. Now, their brain naturally is not going to go there, but if we create a system in which they know that they're going to be safe, or they know that they're going to have a caregiver who will help them learn their regulation skills. So, we typically think of childcare centers as where we learn our alphabet and our colors and our shapes. Well, we also want kids to learn how to self-regulate.
Yes.
And I'm sure you've had other guests on that our brains are 85% developed by the time we are 5 years old.
That is true.
So there's not a lot of growth that's going to occur after that. So there's what we call a pruning period that occurs at the brain at about 3 years of age, so about 36 years of age. About 40% of the neuropathways in the brain are gone away. Basically, the brain is saying, hey, I need to focus on what it is that I need to do.
Right.
And so if I've got a child, I talked a lot about toxic stress, but one of the other responses for children, we have the fight, flight. We also have a freeze response. Well, a freeze response in children look like depression. So what happens is the brain actually becomes inactive. And so I don't dysregulate at all because I don't care. Right. And so, again, they're not learning when they get mad. Well, they don't get mad because they don't care. So they never learn how to regulate those big feelings when they get them. So as they get older, what I call the me phase, where they actually identify who they are. So what we have learned in the attachment movement is that actually very small children see the world through their parents' eyes. So they don't discern the difference between who I am and who they are. They are part of their parents. So if my mom, who's just been beaten up, is scared, well, I'm scared too because they see the world in that way. Or if I got a highly anxious mom who thinks the world is a very scary place, don't leave me, you need to stay very close to me, the kid's going to learn that the world is a very scary place. Never through words, right? So I can have a mom who says all the right things, but if her affect is very anxious, the child's going to become very anxious.
This is powerful to hear, Jeff.
And so part of our work at the child care centers is to teach people to recognize that it's not the fault of the child.
Right, because then it becomes something punitive.
It always, in the history of the way we manage children is through punitive means.
So understanding that it could be fight, flight, as you indicate, or that it could be a freeze kind of situation where I don't care and I'm not responsive is really powerful for an educator. This is really important work. Do you have any data or information that would indicate that there's a correlation between infant mental health and school success.
Absolutely.
And I think, you sort of alluded to that.
So when we look at, and again, I apologize for all of my brain science, but it really helps us understand the function of what we do. So here's another interesting fact is that when we are experiencing these high levels of stress, there's a hormone in our body called cortisol that is produced. The amygdala, part of our brain, produces this cortisol to prepare us for this fight-flight response. Well, one of the responses to high levels of cortisol is deregulation of the hippocampus. So the hippocampus is the part of our brain that stores long-term memory. And we think, well, why is that? Well, because our brains don't want to remember all the bad things that happened to us in vivid detail. So it deregulates the hippocampus. Well, imagine if I can't remember vivid details in my day-to-day life, do you think I'm going to remember vivid details when it comes to what year was this declaration signed? So it absolutely affects our ability to be able to learn and be productive citizens of our society. And so there was a very famous study that was done in the late 90s called the Adverse Childhood Experience Study. It was done by Kaiser Permanente. You may have had a guest on here before, in the CDC. And what they found is that approximately 15% of the population has experienced pretty traumatic stress in their childhood. Well, if we look at some of the scores in our states, we've done really, really a great job in moving our kids to higher level of learning for definitely the top 50%, more or less the top 75%, but that bottom quartile we continue to struggle on. We're not moving them forward. Well, my theory would be it's because those are those children that experience that toxic stress prior to the age of 5. And it was because of that study that I looked into how do we treat those kids. And that's how I came across the infant mental health. And the fact that no one else was doing this on the Treasure Coast, I'm like, this is not good enough for the Martin County families. I need to do this for all the families on the Treasure Coast. And that's what prompted us to go to all 4 counties. Part of my other goal is I want to do something called an early childhood court. And that's basically a trauma-informed court addressing children birth to 3 who have been removed. And it's more of a trauma-informed, non-punitive, right? DCF has a tendency to be punitive. This is much more of a supportive mechanism. And there's pretty amazing outcomes as it relates to this. I will tell our listeners that there's a bill that's been proposed this year in the legislature, Senate Bill 90. So if there's out there an advocacy, please call your local legislator. There's a duplicate bill in the House to provide funding for early childhood courts throughout the state. So I've tried to get it in our circuit, but what I have been told consistently is there is no funding to be able to pay for a judge or a coordinator in our area to be able to organize that, and that comes through the court system. So it really needs to be directed by the legislature to provide funding for this project so that we can have this in our circuit, Circuit 19, which is all 4 counties. And so we have the capacity to be able to provide the service. DCF and Kids Community Connected for Kids, which is our dependency agency, we're all ready. We just need that extra support to be able to implement it.
Well, this certainly is a priority, and hopefully our listeners are paying close attention so that they can advocate for this, because we've said many times on this show that early childhood education is a wise investment, and clearly when you talk about infant mental health, that's certainly a priority.
Yes.
We're going to take a break, and we will be right back.
At the Kindergarten Readiness Collaborative, our vision is for every parent, regardless of income or zip code, to have the knowledge and tools they need to raise healthy children that are prepared for kindergarten. Our mission is to support our partners in developing a high-quality early childhood system that is family-centered. Our outreach and parent engagement specialists connect with families and build trusted relationships. KRC has chosen Fellsmere and Gifford as our 2 focus areas in Indian River County. Our Fellsmere office is located downtown in the city annex, and our New Gifford office is located within Victory Park Apartments. Our administrative offices are now located adjacent to Healthy Start and Treasure Coast Community Health in Vero Beach. The Kindergarten Readiness Collaborative, developing a high-quality early childhood system for all children in Indian River County.
The Gifford Youth Achievement Center is holding an exciting winter fundraiser this year called the Snowball at Oak Harbor. It takes place at the Elegant Oak Harbor Club on January 26th from 5:30 to 9:30. And it includes a cocktail reception, 3-course dinner, dancing to Ladies of Soul, and a really fabulous raffle. Want to know more information? You can go to gyac.net or call 772-794-1005. See you there.
Welcome to Vero Beach Cleaning, a complete home and office cleaning service that fits your needs and attends to your specific special instructions. Call now to schedule your free in-home estimate at 772-564-7839 or contact us through verobeachcleaning.com. 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 verobeachcleaning.com.
Very funny, Stu. No kidding. I'm Donna Roberts-Mitchell, and Vero Beach Cleaning does my home every other week, and I love them. Vero Beach Cleaning.
Hey, I'm Tommy, and I want to invite you to Vino Royale, right here on the water of Royal Palm Point. It's a wine bar, craft beers, and a place just to chill after work and enjoy the view on our luxurious deck overlooking the water. Look for our events, NFL Sunday tickets, bike nights, networking parties, and more. You will always feel comfortable at Vino Royale. That is our main goal. Stop in and check us out. We'd love to meet you. 97 Royal Palm Point, Vero Beach, Florida. We'll see you there. Don't forget, happy hour 4 to 7 every day.
Vero Beach Opera celebrates 30 years of bringing the best in opera to Vero Beach. The season opens January 13th with Carmen, fully staged with orchestra, followed by a bel canto concert on February 2nd. Superstar Marcello Giordani returns in March with a masterclass, vocal competition, and a Rising Stars concert on March 22nd. Learn more at verobeachopera.org. Thank you to corporate sponsor Tocqueville Asset Management and season sponsor Mercedes of Melbourne.
Hurry, Joey. I want to get there early to get the best stuff.
But we have to go to another garage sale. You do know there's a better way. You can get phenomenal stuff and great deals on almost everything at our Habitat Restore.
Hey, isn't that where you got your office desk?
Find great stuff at the renovated and expanded Indian River Habitat Restore on US 1 just north of 45th Street. Open Monday through Saturday from 10 a.m. to 6. Donations of gently used stuff is always appreciated. Shop, donate, volunteer. Habitat Restore is a nonprofit.
We're back to Moonshot Radio, where every moment is an opportunity to learn. I'm your host, Nivea Torres, Executive Director of KRC. And with me today in the studio, we have a special guest. We're learning so much from him, Jeff Shear. He is the CEO and co-founder of Tykes and Teens. Jeff, welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you.
Jeff, I want you to share with our audience a little bit about your metaphor about the orchid and the dandelion. What does that mean, and how can parents use that in their own personal experience?
So I use this metaphor to kind of help parents understand that each child is different and that different needs for different children exist. So probably the best way to understand at the beginning is that we all have different temperament styles. So, you know, some people are shy and some people are extroverts, or introverts versus extroverts, right? Some people are naturally optimistic. Some people are naturally pessimistic. What we know is that people, when we have different experiences, and most of those have a tendency to be negative, will push those temperament styles further and further to the limit. So if you were already a shy person, you would become even more shy. And so I use the metaphor of the dandelion and the orchid because what you always hear is, well, I think of Ben Carson in particular, right? He's the famous neuroscientist who's now the head of the Department of Housing and Urban Development, right? So he grew up in the projects. There was a tremendous amount of violence involved, and yet he became a world-renowned neuroscientist. He got an MD. It's like, well, if he can do it, then anyone can do it. Well, the thing is that he probably was a dandelion. His temperament style and his response to the stressors that were in his life gives him the ability to be able to grow in a crack of a sidewalk. He doesn't need a lot of water. He doesn't need a lot of dirt. He was able to thrive on his own. And as with everything, there is a spectrum, because on the other end is the orchid, right? The orchid needs the right amount of temperature. They need the right amount of light. They need the right amount of water to be able to survive and thrive. And so when we think about this in relation to our goal here of 90% of children will reach effective reading by third grade, we have to think of everyone as the orchid, right? So when are they getting their needs? What are their needs? How do we go about supporting those needs? So one of my catchphrases that I use is that there's meaning behind all behavior. That there's a purpose as to why we do what we do. And I'll give you a great example. I worked with a young man who came to me. My expertise is working with kids who've been traumatized, adolescents who've been traumatized. I mean, these days I'm working with babies, but the majority of my career, that's the age group that I worked with. So he came to me because he had gotten arrested for stealing. And he had been adopted at age 4. And basically the parents told me he has been stealing since the moment he came to our house. They called him a thief. Some of the other behaviors that he had is that he would take food out of the pantry and hoard it in his bedroom. So even though they had an open pantry rule in their house, he would hoard it. The other interesting thing that he would do is that after he ate it, he wouldn't throw the trash away. He would stuff it in his drawer or hide it underneath his bed, right? Even though there's a trash can right there in his room, he would do that. There's meaning to that. So here's a kid who for 9 years has consistently gotten in trouble, right? We do traditional discipline. They've taken things away. He was arrested. And despite that, he continued to engage in this behavior. So of course, my job is to figure out, okay, there's a meaning behind this, right? Typically in our society, we say, well, he's a delinquent. He's a bad kid. Well, I don't believe in that phenomena. I know that there's meaning behind that. Well, so as I explored with him about what the meaning was, what I quickly found out is that all of his stealing always was related to food. So he either would steal food directly, or he would, one of the big troubles that he got into is he stole $20 out of the teacher's purse. This happened in first grade. Well, he took the $20, he went to the cafeteria and he bought food. So here's what's interesting, right? He's in a upper middle class family. They have plenty of food. Why would he be driven to steal food when he always has access to it, right? Doesn't make any sense. Well, the problem is the function of that behavior developed when he was much younger. That when he was 1 and 2 years old, if he didn't seek out his food, he probably wouldn't have it. He came from a very highly neglectful family, and he had to seek it out. Well, the problem was his brain never caught up that the rules are different today than they were when I was 2 and 3.
Got it. Because
it's encoded on a nonverbal level. What I learned is that he would have these urges to steal, and he really could not articulate them. Like, I just have the urge to steal. Well, what I found out is the urge to steal actually were hunger pains. And so I had to retrain his brain that, hey, that feeling that you feel in the stomach, when you feel like you have that urge to steal, it's not that you have an urge to steal. It's just that you're hungry. And I will tell you, this is a kid who went 9 years with extensive stealing behavior. Parents would say on a weekly basis, he would steal something. We eliminated the behavior within 6 weeks. Because once he understood and recognized the feeling that he had, he went and got food. And so he never connected the dots because, of course, he never understood the meaning behind that behavior. So when we understand when we're looking at very small children, we have to operate from 2 worldviews. One is that there could be meaning behind it.
Meaning. And
what I will say is that the primary thing that they gravitate towards is safety. The other is that they don't have the skill in the first place, right? So that really depressed kid, they never learned the capacity to regulate themselves. So it's up to us adults to teach them those things. And maybe not in a traditional way, but in another way.
That's very powerful. Thank you for sharing that vivid example, yes, Jeff, and guiding us through it. It was is so helpful. And you say there's meaning behind that behavior.
Yes.
Jeff, you've shared a lot of information with us. For folks who are listening, how can they get more information about the programs that Takes in Teens or other events that you might have coming up?
Well, I would encourage people to go to our Facebook page and like our Facebook page. We also have a website. Our organization does Facebook Lives on a regular basis where we talk about a variety of mental health topics. We also do a podcast where we talk about how famous people in the past have used adversity and overcame them to become very successful people. So you can find all of that on either our Facebook page or our website, www.takesinteens.org.
Excellent. And you will be our featured guest on January 31st. We will be hosting a Lunch and Learn at Northern Trust. So folks who are listening and are interested, visit our website, krcirc.org. Jeff, thank you for joining me today. I appreciate it.
Yes, thank you for having me.
And until next time, this has been Moonshot Radio.